Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we're doing another walkthrough of one of my personal decks. I've been asked about this one quite a bit because similar to the Fibblethip deck that we did a couple weeks ago, I think this was like one of the first decks that showed up on the channel, did do a Yargle deck, and I do have my own. So it was both inspired by that deck and also inspired that deck because I was working on it at the time. Now, obviously, since the deck that showed up on the channel was a budget version, this one is not. This is a little bit more heavily upgraded, but we do still have our commander here, Yargle, just a 5-mana 9/3 with no other abilities. Of course, got to get that pre-release promo, got to make sure it's nice and fancy in the command zone. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to walk through all of the cards in the deck. We'll just talk about why they're in there, kind of my reasoning for putting them in, and then why the deck itself exists. So obviously we got Swiftfoot Boots. Got to make sure that can't touch our commander. We have Grafted Exoskeleton because I'm a monster, and it gives +2/+2 an infect, which means that Yargle then hits someone for 11 infect and immediately one-shots them, takes them out of the game. Caged Sun, we're mono black deck, so this is a great way for us to get Yargle up to 10 power, that +1/+1, and then also doubling up at our mana, also very useful. Mask of Grizzlebrand gives lifelink and lets us draw cards equal to Yargle's power when it dies. So not the most efficient card draw in the deck, but also very good in case we need it. Plus the flying and lifelink, very good on Yargle. We have Succumb to Temptation, just draw 2, lose 2. This deck, I've really tried to find ways to work around having these kinds of cards because I'm not a big fan of them, but I haven't been able to find a good replacement for them. So if you have a suggestion for some just burst card draw effects in mono black that are roughly equivalent to 3 mana draw 2, please let me know because I would love some upgrades in there. We have Polluted Mire, just a land that can help us out. We got Swamps, because, need some swamps. Without Weakness, just one of our ways to protect Yargle, so it gets indestructible until end of turn, and then if for some reason we don't need it, we can cycle it away. But just something to keep him on board. Some more Swamps. Fire Shrieker for double strike. Yargle with 9 power hitting for 18. Usually pretty decent. Cold Steel Heart, just some 2-mana ramp. Make sure we can hit Yargle faster. Some more Swamps. An Opal Palace. So again, we can just kind of put some more random counters onto Yargle, make him just slightly bigger. Mainly because with the 9 power, he's a 3-hit kill, even though he's super, super close to a 2. So we wanted to try to find ways to make him a 2-hit kill, if not even just a 1. One of the swords, Sword of Sinew and Steel. So giving pro black, pro red can have its downsides in the deck. Having pro black is not always great because it means things like Without Weakness can't actually protect Yargle. But it also gives us a way to destroy planeswalkers and artifacts, which we don't rely pretty heavily on. We don't run a ton of interaction in the deck. A lot of our game plan focuses on getting Yargle in play and just smacking people. So being able to have that removal built into one of our equipments is usually very good. Some more basic lands. We got an Eldrazi Conscription because, again, sometimes you just gotta wind up and smack people with Yargle. So +10/+10 Trample and Annihilator 2 means that our commander automatically at 19 power, so we just need a little bit of an extra push to get it there. Plus it removes permanents our opponents control, so something to be aware of. Grappling Hook, again, double strike, and then this one also forces things to block it. So again, kind of using our equipment as our removal, being able to force someone's combo piece or someone's commander in front of Yargle can be very good, especially if it already has trample and we know we're going to get in damage anyway. Price of Fame, just a good removal spell in Commander. Honestly, you should probably play it more. It's just 2 mana, destroy target legendary creature, and Surveil 2. And 4 mana if it's a non-legend, but let's be real. At this point, most things are legends. Noxious Gearhulk, we get to one of our only creatures in the deck that's not Yargle. We do not have a ton of creatures in here. But again, it's a removal spell, and it's a body that we can put equipment on if for some reason Yargle really just gets killed so many times that we can't get it back into play. Shadow Spear, a way to gain life, give trample. Also remove hexproof if that's ever relevant. Eldest Reborn is both a removal spell, forcing everyone to sack us something, make our opponents discard, and then it's a reanimation spell. So if our opponents have something big that we know we can't really deal with, we could get it back, and then it's our problem and not theirs. We got a swamp. We got a Stratascythe, one of the better equipments in the deck, because you get to search for a land, put it into exile, and then give the equipped creature +1/+1 for each card on the battlefield with the same name. So obviously we pick a swamp. We've got, say, 5-10 swamps on play. Yargle's getting +5, +10, but it's also counting our opponent's lands, so it's all lands on the battlefield. So if any of our opponents also have swamps, it's gonna continue to get bigger. Cabal Stronghold, phenomenal ramp piece in mono black. Vorpal Sword, just another way to one-shot our opponents. Being able to give +2/+0 is very impressive for Yargle, because that pushes him to 11. That automatically makes him a 2-shot kill. And then also being able to just pay 8 mana and just make it like an auto win condition is very, very good. Ugin the Ineffable just makes all of our colorless spells 2 less. We have plenty of equipment in the deck, so being able to have Ugin to make stuff cheaper kind of acts as a ramp piece, but then also can destroy things and gives us card advantage. Forebear's Blade, just a lot of keywords that we would like to see on Yargle, plus a +3/+0. Vigilance, Trample means, once again, 2-shot kill. Vigilance, it can still defend, since we don't have a ton of creatures, very important. Buried Ruin, being able to get back some of our artifacts on a land. Hammer of Nazan, probably the best equipment in the entire deck, because it gives Yargle indestructible, which is super important. Gives him +2/+0, so it puts him into that 2-shot kill range, and it lets us auto-equip any equipment that we play. So now we don't have to worry about playing it and then using the equip cost. We can just equip to Yargle and immediately start swinging. Whisper Silk Cloak is both good and bad. It's definitely one of those equipment that you really don't play until you are ready to knock out an opponent, because being able to make Yargle unblockable is phenomenal. That's a great win condition. That's what we want to be doing. But giving him Shroud means that we can't equip him with any more stuff. We can't save him if we need to. So it's definitely one of those cards that you only want to use when you're ready to use it. Otherwise, you might put yourself in a position where you're not able to get the killing blow on somebody. We got Unlikely Aid. Once again, just giving Yargle indestructible, +2/+0. So it's a good way to protect him if need be. Some more basic lands. We have another removal spell on a body. Shriek Maw, being able to destroy a non-artifact, non-black creature. We can do it cheap for 2 mana or have the actual body that comes with it. So you might notice that a lot of our removal is on creatures. That is on purpose. We want to make sure that we always have a body to equip our equipments to. And obviously Yargle is always going to be target number 1. But on the off chance that we can't have Yargle, they've killed him too many times, maybe he's trapped under like an oubliette or something, then we can use some of our other remaining creatures. Quietus Spike, just a massive shot to our opponents. If it hits, they lose half their life. Just a good equipment. Hero's Blade, another one that is very cheap to equip because it auto-equips to a legend when it enters the battlefield. Gets +3, so it gives Yargle that much needed 11 power to double hit something. We got Vraska's Contempt, just as an exile effect, being able to exile a creature or planeswalker. Normally, like I said, we try to include all of our removal on our creatures, but having exile can be very useful in some cases. We got a Swamp again. We got Basilisk Collar, so Death Touch and Lifelink, phenomenal for Yargle, being able to gain back any damage he deals, especially because we're going to get to a point in the game where he's our only creature. So if we attack, he's no longer able to defend. We got to take some hits. So being able to have lifelink, very good. We have Defile, another removal spell. This one is for some of the bigger stuff. Being able to give something -1/-1 for each swamp we control. Presumably, we'll have plenty of swamps. That's not going to be a problem. It's 1 mana, instant speed. Just phenomenal. We have Argentum Armor. Once again, removal attached to an equipment. Also gives +6, making Yargle just a 15 power beater. So if we have a couple of other equipments, he can very easily just one-shot somebody. Suspicious Bookcase, being able to make him unblockable, very useful. Also a defender, so it's something that can just stop attacks. Again, Sign in Blood, draw 2, lose 2. I'm not sold on a lot of these cards. I put them in here because like I said, I wasn't really sure what else to do for card draw. So if people have suggestions, I would love to hear them. We got a swamp, we got a soul ring, because, got to cast our stuff. Rush of Vitality, once again, giving Yargle indestructible. One thing that you'll notice is with things like Rush of Vitality, without weakness, that kind of thing, they all give indestructible. It's not the regenerate or undying that you see a lot of times in mono black. And I did have some in here, and I might still have some in here now that I'm thinking about it. But I really wanted to focus on the indestructible, because if we regenerate, it's going to tap down Yargle, and that's not what we want to be doing. And if it's like, when it dies, return it to the battlefield, that means that we would lose all the equipment that are attached to Yargle, and obviously we don't want to have to spend our mana to reattach it. So giving indestructible, I felt, was a little bit more relevant in that case. Another card draw, 3 mana, draw 2, lose 2, but if we spend 3 black, we also make a food token, so a little bit of an upside there. Barrenmoor, big fan of cycling lands. Cranial Plating, again, one of the better equipment in the deck to just knock people out with Yargle. It's one of those equipment that gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and you can pay 2 black to attach it whenever. So you can actually just attach it after someone has declared no blocks, or you can do it on the end step of an opponent's turn and be able to have it for your turn. Another swamp, an emergence zone, just... Again, sometimes you need to be able to kind of hit your opponents out of nowhere. So being able to end step, sacrifice emergence zone, cast Yargle as though it had flash, untap, equip him with a bunch of stuff, and immediately attack can sometimes just win you the game outright. Nihil Spellbound, gotta have Graveyard Hate because you gotta be responsible Magic players. Haunted Cloak, another big fan of mine in this deck. It just gives a bunch of keywords. It doesn't pump, but Vigilance, Trample, and Haste is super great for Yargle, especially when it only equips for 1. Being able to just swing in for 9 immediately is very, very good. Another Sword of Truth and Justice. Being able to proliferate, put counters on Yargle, turns him into a much bigger threat very, very quickly. And the protection from white and from blue doesn't affect us at all. It just kind of shuts down 2 of the main removal spells. We got some more swamps. Oh my goodness, many swamps. Okay. Commander's Plate, phenomenal equipment for any equipment deck, because it's going to give +3/+3 protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. So people can still hit us with black removal spells, but they couldn't hit us with white, red, green, or blue. And that's going to be incredibly important, because a lot of black removal does specify that it can't be a black creature. So if we shut down everything but black removal spells, we actually put ourselves in a pretty decent position to maintain Yargle and keep swinging. Harvester of Souls, one of our few non-Yargle creatures, just a card draw effect, essentially. Sword of Vengeance, one of the very good keyword adding cards for Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Very, very useful. Darksteel Plate, one of the few ways we have to give indestructible permanently. Lash Wraith is very similar to the Scythe that we talked about earlier. Just gives equipped creature +1/+1 for each swamp that we control. This one only does care about our swamps, so that is something to be aware of. It doesn't count opponents. Blackblade Reforged, +1 for each land we control. Very good. Some more swamps. Arch of Orazka, because we are hard up for, some card draw every once in a while. Deadly Rollick, once again, one of the exile spells that is going to be very relevant. We can cast it for free as long as we control our commander. So that's one of the few non-creature or equipment-based removal spells we have, because it's exile and it's free. Got some swamp. Haunted Plate Mail. This is kind of like my my pet card in the deck, because it's just an equipment that gives +4/+4. But you can pay 0 to make it into a 4/4 creature, but only if you control no creatures. So since we're so light on creatures, and there's a good chance that, someone might blow up the board and then all of a sudden we're just out of luck, we still have this as a backup to just activate, throw all of our equipment on it, and swing if we really need to. Ancient Craving, more card draw. 4 mana, draw 3, lose 3. Crypt Rats is technically a board wipe. It's definitely one of the cards that we're going to use all of our mana all at once. We don't want to spend just 1 mana into it, because we'll kill the Crypt Rats itself, so we want to make sure that we're spending a bunch to just blow up the board. We got some more swamps. We got Cauldron Complete, because it's, again, one of the best equipments out there. Just being able to give something +5/+5, first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and doing damage to a creature, it exiles it. And yes, it's very expensive to equip. It's 7 mana to equip, 7 mana to cast. But a lot of times we'll not really care too much about that. And even if we did, it still comes in with a germ token, so it at least gives us another body that can start swinging right away. Thorn of the Black Rose, because I'm a sucker for Monarch and I love introducing Monarch into my games. Loxodon Warhammer, trample, lifelink, +3, phenomenal. Field of Ruin, because sometimes there's just lands you got to get rid of. Night's Whisper, draw 2, lose 2. Swamp, Soul of New Phyrexia, one of the ways that we can give Indestructible. Certainly not the most efficient, it's definitely not the best out there, but it's at least something to give us Indestructible if we need it. Mask of Memory is card draw. Draw 2, discard 1 when you deal damage. Read the Bones, scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Swamp. Blood Forged Battle Axe. Now this is one of those cards that gets out of hand very quickly with Yargle if you can start swinging, because every time you hit, you make a copy of it. So if you've got 2 equipped, you make 2 copies, and then 4 equipped, you make 4 copies. So this is one of those cards that can put Yargle into the one-shot kill range very, very quickly and very efficiently. Infernal Grasp, not one of my favorite removal spells in the deck. It's mainly in here because it's 2 mana, destroy anything, and at instant speed, that's usually a little bit underrepresented, so I did want to include this just as something. That's another one that I'm still kind of testing. I don't know if it's going to stay in here long term, but it's here for now. Key to the City, phenomenal way to make your cards unblockable, and then you can discard a card to make it unblockable and then draw when it untaps. This is one that Mike, who has showed up on the channel multiple times, McKG3 over on Twitter and Twitch. So do check his stuff out. He does some amazing drawing and playing video games, stuff like that. But this was one of his go-to cards for the longest time. And so I really learned about it from him. So a shout out to Mike for giving us this awesome tech of Key to the City. So check it out. Trust me, it performs better than it looks like it should. Another Swamp, Meteor Golem, following the trend of having removal tied to creatures, so that way we have something to put our equipments on. Dousing Dagger, as much as it sucks to give our opponents some lands, or not lands, we get the land. They get little plant tokens. As much as it sucks to give them blockers, this at least gives us a way to transform it and then make a massive 3 mana producing land. Some more Swamps. Sigiled Sword of Valoron. This is another one I'm not 100% sure about in the deck, but it feels good enough and it's done well so far in the past. It gives +2/+0 vigilance, and it turns Yargle into a knight, which I think is just kind of funny. But it also gives us a knight creature token that is attacking when Yargle attacks, so it gives us this way to defend ourselves, push through a little extra damage, put some more bodies on the board without having to actually play another creature in the deck. We got another Swamp. We got a Poison the Cup. This one is another one that I'm kind of just testing out for removal spells. It's just a murder, 3 mana, destroy a creature, but you also get to scry 2 if it was Foretold. So Foretold technically pushes it to 4 mana, 2 mana on the turn that you foretell it, 2 mana on the turn that you cast it. So I don't know if it's good enough to be in the deck. It's one that I'm still testing to see how it works, but it's been doing okay so far. It's just, generic removal spell. Ancient Tomb, just 2 mana out of a land, phenomenal. That's where we want to be. Tainted Strike, my personal favorite card in the deck, because it simply gives a creature +1/+0 and Infect. And so for those counting, that makes Yargle a 10 power creature with Infect, and it's an instant. So you can just get someone out of nowhere. And if you talk to Bilal, who has also shown up on the channel multiple times, he is usually the victim of the Tainted Strike, not because of any particular reason other than I expect him to kill me, but it's kind of become a running joke that whenever I attack Bilal with Yargle, he just kind of expects me to have the Tainted Strike now, even if I don't. So I guess that's a good reputation to have. And then our last couple of cards, we got a Swamp, of course. And our last actual card in the deck, we have Sword of the Animist, because we got a ramp, and it's one of the best ways to ramp if you're talking about equipment decks. So being able to just suit Yargle up with a sword, get a basic land every single time we attack. It's what we want to be doing anyway. But yeah, so that is my personal Yargle deck. Like I said, definitely does not share too many similarities with the Yargle deck that I built on the channel, which I will make sure to link in the description as well if you're interested. I will admit that that Yargle deck was one of my very first decks for the channel. I imagine that the quality of the video is not very great. I'm personally a little nervous to go back and watch it, but I'm sure the deck itself still holds up. And this deck list will also be in the description of the video as well. So if you're interested, let me know. I would love if people would give me some feedback on my own personal decks. Like I said, I'm struggling with the card draw. I don't quite know what to throw in. But if you have any suggestions for cards that I could use to improve my Yargle deck, please do let me know. It's one of my oldest decks. I've had it for like 6 years or something at this point. So definitely one of my favorites. But thank you all so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing other deck techs like this, where I just pick apart my own personal decks, let me know, drop a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.